Welcome to the Your Leadership Legacy podcast. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause, and I'm so excited to bring you this next podcast dedicated to you high performers out there who want to reinvent yourself, reinvent your business, maybe your career, all of it. This podcast is all about being dedicated to transformation and being the best possible leader of yourself and others that you can be in order to create a legacy that lives on. Welcome to Your Leadership Legacy. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause. I am the founder and CEO of True You Teams. And here we go. Hey, everyone. It's good to see you. Courtney and I have been together now for a week, and it's been amazing. And I have to leave today. So it's like, we're going to do this on the day that I'm leaving. What if I get emotional? So I really, really appreciate you guys being here. I think that we get to talk about the power of presence. It's something that the last couple of times that we've been together, we've been really talking about the power of presence. And through my transformation, through our journey, Courtney and I, a lot of the times people, when, I've been very vocal about my story, and it's what's helped me really. Hey, Jen, how are you? It's really supported me to kind of move through my transformation as I use my voice, as I got more comfortable with using my voice, as I got more comfortable with saying, hey, here's what happened to me. And I see that it happens to a lot of people. But here's the thing, there was a point in our journey, and Courtney, I know you'll resonate with this, but there was a point in our journey when Courtney, she'd get like irritated with me. She'd be like, Mom, that's your story. Mom, that's your story. And so what I want to do today, since, a lot of you that are here or that'll be listening to this have heard my story from the mom perspective of our transformation and getting that call one morning, 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning, Mom, something really bad happened last night. And then the spiral effect that came from that. But Courtney has said to me more than once, but Mom, that's your story. Who's watched the Adderall Diaries? You guys know that video? Anybody seen that video? It's not a video, it's a movie. Write it down, Adderall Diaries. It's a really great story about addiction, first of all, but it's also a really great story about generational healing and the perspectives that come with generational healing. So Courtney and I talk a lot about generational healing. I got to be the stop in our family so that we could all be the stop and change kind of some of the programming and the trajectory that was happening. And until I got really honest with how I was showing up with my kids at work, in my life in general, I wasn't able to really change that. So as I talk about it all the time, it's from my perspective. And so Courtney is this beautiful, amazing soul that I get to welcome to the show today. So hi, honey.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome. Yeah. I owe everything to Courtney. I know I was living my life the way I thought I was supposed to, right? We have this programming, you grow up and you do the stuff and you go to school and you get married and you have the kids and this is just what you're supposed to do. And you climb the ladder and that was my programming. And I was really good at it. And I wasn't very good at doing some of the things that I needed to do in my own house. And so Courtney, what I would love for you to do is introduce yourself to people so that the world gets to know who you are, because you're so powerful and you're so magical and you've come through addiction in such a beautiful way. And so thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. And bear with me. This is my first time kind of sharing my story, our story. So the emotions are real. I'm not going to kind of hide and fake that. So if I just start crying or if we start, whatever, that's going to come through. So yeah, my story hasn't really been told through me in the way that I've wanted to kind of put it out there. So I appreciate the space and I appreciate you guys for being here and listening and keeping up with Mom, or keeping up with Tina and all of the amazing work she's doing, and then kind of understanding why we do this work. So, and it's kind of like when my voice shakes or rumbles, and no matter what, I'm present, I'm showing up. So that was kind of a big thing for me today, is to, no matter what, show up and tell our story and continue to tell our story and allow others to kind of come into that circle, come into that, it's kind of like the council, and share. We've all been through a lot and we can kind of stay there. But our story, the beautiful thing of it is right now, I feel like it's just starting. You know, we've been through our darkness, we've been through our programming, you know, and we've been through that together. And now we're kind of sitting in a new space and creating a whole new world. So it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to work with you and kind of grow our visions and life together.
Yeah. I mean, when I think back to, you know, just being on this grind of in corporate, right? You're in corporate and you're climbing the ladder and you're doing your thing. And I would go to work every day. And when I think about being present, I wasn't really present in the moments that I could have or should have been present. And so, Courtney, if you were to go back into your inner child, right? Like back to 0 to 8, after you've been through hell and back now with addiction and recovery and all of that, what would you have told your 6-year-old self?
Yeah. And even being in it, you know, some of us have been through this also. My story is not new or, you know, unique in any way. We've all gone through these things. For me, that inner child or that 6-year-old, on the outside, everything looked perfect. You know, my mom and my dad were together. We lived, you know, we had a shelter over our head. Everything looked good from the outside, you know, like kind of that white picket fence kind of thing. But on the inside, I was growing up at a rapid rate, I believe, and just having abilities that I wasn't able to express to my parents or anyone around me. So, you know, talking to that inner child or going back, especially now, letting that child know that everything was reality. You know, even my parents didn't have it figured out at that time. You know, the adults, you know, even though it looks like we have it figured out or it looks like everything's okay, that there's kind of a more deeper surface, no matter whether our family goes into that or talks about it. You know, I think it's very healthy for me to kind of look at that time and not, again, like tell myself stories about that time, but to kind of what you're saying, go into that inner child and sit with it, you know, and thanks for allowing that space.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, we hold on to that stuff for so long, and the programming that we have from that 0 to 8 comes into our adult relationships, and 98% of us don't even realize that we just live our life continuing to like malfunction and not understanding why we're malfunctioning. And so the beautiful thing that I've loved about our journey together is that it hasn't been easy at all. I mean, I remember you calling me in the same breath saying, "Mom, I'm not having kids and I'm moving to New York." And I was like, whoa, wait a second, one of these things at a time, you know? And so I think that there's been such a journey of just peace and grace and learning to not control. Like I was really good at controlling. I wanted to control how you were growing up. And it wasn't until you set the boundary and said, I am moving to New York, that was your solitude. Like you went away in solitude so that you could, after addiction, really figure out what that all looked like. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that time in your life when, you know, like as mom, I felt shut out, right? And so I had all these emotions and all this stuff about being shut out and being mad and all this stuff when you were really just trying to figure it out and trying to find yourself. So talk to us a little bit about what you were going through during that time.
Yeah, and I kind of want to bring it back too, because you know, you were saying that you were controlling. We are different people that now today than we were back then. So you know, both of my parents were going through their own individual journeys, you know, and then separated. But growing up, you know, with an alcoholic, absent father, you know, and then, you know, a mother who was controlling and wasn't listening to my vision, you know, to my dreams, not the programming of what I should be doing, you know, kind of all those life purpose kind of deals, you know. And then it was one day we just kind of woke up and we knew that there was a better life to live, you know. And so for me, going to rehab, you know, walking myself into a rehabilitation center and knowing I needed that help that was deeper than just the alcohol. You know, it was abuse to myself, alcohol abuse, but it was also emotional abuse, psychic abuse. And so I really, you know, during that healing process, I got to understand my programming in the past. And when I came back home after all of that, you know, my recovery was very much, you know, in close quarters, you know, but we still weren't connecting. And I wasn't at that time going to blame you anymore. I wasn't going to blame our family. I wasn't going to blame my father. My father had gotten sober. My mother had, also gone and became a coach, and coaching the very thing that we needed to be coached on. And so, moving to New York, that was and especially kind of, coming out of I always say coming out of the closet with everything, with
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff, and coming out of the
Literally
closet,
everything.
literally coming out of the closet psychic was hard, because even though at that time, I would tell you the visions I was having or tell you the experiences I was having, I still wasn't 100% sure what was happening. So my, solitude, when I asked my higher self and my guides in the universe what to do, they finally asked, well, what do you want to do? And that to me was mind blowing. I've been in service for so long. I've been healing and, following the path of, the guidance for so long, that that mirror came back to me, and I still knew I needed deeper healing. I knew I needed to find myself ultimately, because I was still, hiding. I was in that turtle shell for so long. So
Yeah.
New York, living a mile away from the ocean in a little cottage, it didn't sound so bad. So that was something I fought for. I worked hard towards, even though everyone around me thought I was crazy for moving so far away and to leave everything kind of behind. But I was going in deeper, configuring that. And during this time we have Christmas, and I remember I wasn't accepting gifts. I wasn't doing any kind of holiday that, related to anything in that programming. So you sent me gifts and we called over the phone and we opened. We were still trying to create tradition, even though I was in my solitude and really healing at the deepest levels. So we were trying to kind of integrate everything at that point. And that's kind of, I was at the wow factor too.
Yeah.
Wow factor of, hey, I don't know who I am. I might have told you I was, not gonna have kids and, I was moving to New York. I could have told you that, but I didn't know who I was fully and what I wanted to do.
Yeah, it's a really, and Donise, I think of the work that you do too, because it's a really great point, because during those moments, I could have also gone back into my programming and like just been on her and like, you got to make a decision and controlling and telling her what she should do and who she should be, because that's what I knew, that's what she had grown up with. And so what was really, really amazing, and today what we get to coach people through, which is beautiful, was that there was this space of growth and learning together. Like there was this moment where I just let go of the control and I just loved you for exactly who you were. And I trusted, right? I trusted that you now had the tools to be able to create your own happiness instead of me having to be responsible for it. And I can't even tell you how many times in families, in family dynamics, whether it's mother and daughter, mother and son, like father, like I see this all the time in family dynamics. And so, what I would say to anybody who's really like trying to figure this out is that, Courtney and I were very, very intentional about letting go of the past programming. We were very communicative about it, going, okay, Courtney, this is what's coming up for me. I want to control the shit out of this right now.
Yeah,
and
you
I know
had a
I'm not going
success
to.
plan.
Yeah.
Written
Right.
page
I mean,
success plan.
I was coming from corporate, no kidding. The day she called me, like, Mom, it's Sunday morning. It's, 10 o'clock in the morning. By the time she got home that night, I had a whole PowerPoint plan for her. I had her whole life in front of her. It's all on a PowerPoint. It's the CP success plan. It was so ridiculous. But that's how I knew to support. Like mom radar was going off, like my kid's in trouble, in trouble, in trouble, in trouble. And so as parents, I think what we do is we want to fix, I wanted to make her happy. I didn't want to see her sad anymore. And when I wanted it more than she did, that didn't work. It just didn't work. And so, Courtney, talk a little bit about how, because we were like this a lot of the time, our whole life. And then gradually we started to figure out. And I know I can talk about that from my perspective, but I would love for you to talk about it from your perspective of how we started to figure it out. Like, what did that look like?
Well, and that's the ground game. So if you ever hear us talking about ground game, that's Tina's got it, and at that time I didn't have it. I had my spiritual radars up and, moving towards where is like the North Star, but that trust within each other, it was there. But again, that trust with me and spirit. So you and I were grounded. We had a plan on the ground. But then I realized why would I plan out my whole life by next year? I could live that whole life and then want like a different one, or like, life isn't always planned out. So me, kind of going back to that moving to New York, that was trust between you and I, because I had visions of the place I was going to stay, how long I was going to be there, what I was going to do. And to you, who I was going to be around, to you, radars, and you just kind of, you learn to trust, you learn to support by being, and even though those times, I think we had a few weeks where there wasn't that cottage yet there, I was just going to New York and I was with you at the house for a few weeks, and I told you the date, like the day and the date.
Yeah.
This is when I'm going to get that rental. This is when it's going to happen. And again, it's trust. I had to trust, what you say, I got to trust spirit, my higher self, my abilities, and we got to support each other, but then get to learn how to do that distantly and get to learn how to do that without, the control, I would say.
I want to go a little bit deeper into the ground game and the spirit game, because like we talk about that a lot, I mean, you are a powerful spiritual healer. I've seen it with my own eyes with people that I know that you don't know. And like, I've seen miracles happen with you. You are a powerful, you got spirit game, right? So you had spirit game, I had ground game. We didn't understand each other. I remember times in your life, Courtney, when you were growing up and you would talk to me about your abilities. You would either be seeing something or feeling something or something like that. And I was in the background going, my kid's a hypochondriac, right? Like I wasn't understanding what was happening. I wasn't giving you the grace. I wasn't trusting you in what was happening. And so today, when we can take parents and the gifts that children have and really be able to love that child unconditionally and not make them feel the shame and blame because it's different or something that we weren't programmed to or whatever it is, that's a massive skill. And it's a massive thing that will really change the trajectory of, I see you guys nodding your head. Like that's the work. Like that's the work. We didn't just wake up one day and go, oh my God, I totally get you now, Courtney. It took a lot of really hard work and a lot of, and a lot of going at it. And I mean, you stood your ground with me. You stood your ground with me. And I didn't like it sometimes, but I started to respect it. And I started to like be open to understanding where it was that you were coming from. And so it's so beautiful that today we get to work with people to really help bring that together. But yeah, daughter's going to replay this with her, please. Absolutely, please. It's just, for me in our generation, Carol Sue, like I just didn't understand. I didn't understand the abilities. I didn't, and so I thought that she had all these issues and, challenges and I would made it about me and just all this gross stuff. And when the day that I could open up to that, like, and it was a question that I was asked in one of my leadership classes, what are you pretending not to know? Like, what are you pretending not to know? And so I ask anybody on this call right now, because we all pretend not to know stuff that's not working in our life. What are you pretending not to know? I pretended not to know that my kid had abilities. I pretended not to know that I was yelling and screaming. I pretended not to know that I was coming from this place of just stressed out and anxiety, and I was taking it out on everybody in my life. I was pretending not to know. And I was playing victim to all of it. And so what was so beautiful, Courtney, about our experience is I say, like, you went off to drug and alcohol rehab. I went off to almost this emotional rehab. We each took ourselves on individually, right? Individually. And then at the end of it, like we've been sitting here for the last week just going, oh my God, this is happening. Like on the other side of it, we've now created a retreat center, to support people who are going through this same kind of stuff. And like to just, I still pinch myself about it, but I want to be able today to give people the tools to be able to start the process. So that's my next question to you, Courtney, is if somebody were to come to you and go, where do I even start? Like my kid and I, we're on opposite ends of the world. We don't see eye to eye. Where do I even start?
Yeah.
Where would you say to start?
The word hope is so loud right now. Because a lot of us even, and I'll get emotional here too, because looking back at our story and you crying, you can say you were angry and you were yelling and all this, but do you remember the times that you were crying on the bathroom floor? Like, you know, as an adult now, like hearing that, knowing that, you know, now being a mom and having children, that I now know why that can happen in certain days, you know, like hope is there, you know, it's not when you're in it. And a lot of us, when we hear this or when we're called to it, we're in it. And so for me to know I was in my darkest of dark, you know, I got to see everything that, and I asked for that, you know, maybe not the phone call that day when I asked for your help, but I wanted to dive into my darkest of dark and my shadows and to know who I am. And even in those kind of icky places, you know, and now we get to go into our light. And that I think, and that's where that love is, you know, love is in the dark, but the dark, there's just so much darkness there. So if we can hold out that hand and really allow people to say, hey, like, I know where to go. And I know Donise is on this call today, and with the children and having that, you know, the coaches from the children to the adults, everywhere in between, you know, the initiations to the elders, you know, and then even the elders having initiations and the children teaching us. You know, there's so much more for this, you know, in this, that there's so much hope. So you can be in that dark and you can be in that suffering and fear. But today, when you're hearing this, or, you know, later on when you hear this, it's a calling, you know, you're like, something's going on, or you know, you have somebody that you know needs this kind of support and therapy. Because I know at that time I needed drug and drug and alcohol rehabilitation, but even now it's like, where's the sugar rehabilitation? You know, there's always to be something else. There's always going to be something else we can improve on and go into, even that generational healing. But then, you know, individually, and even when you're here during this week, you know, there's things that come up. You know, there's communication, there's you know, past stuff. And it's amazing how we've structured it to where, like, you know, that 5 minutes of venting, this is what happened this last week. I'm in it, and I'm going to have to go into it, you know, again after, and then just being in the moment and being present. And, you know, even 20, 30 years from now, we'll be in a totally different space and place, and that's okay. So it's kind of evolving in it's not advice. I don't even like to say this is advice. It's what we went through. So I know it works. I know that when I wasn't doing well, you were the person that I trusted the most. And I still do to this day, to sit down. We sat down, we had an action plan together, and we stuck through it, you know, and even today we stick through it, and we have life things happening, you know, life things going on, and we have the next generation, and hopefully in 10 or 20, maybe 30 more years, we'll have another generation, because I'm not ready for that yet. But, you know, we're really ushering in these next few generations, and giving them that hope and that tool and the people. And we have our own community that's going through this, and that will hold each other accountable and go through the darkest days and go through the lightest days together. So
yeah, I love the message of hope for sure. What I also hear you saying is that it starts with us, right? It started with me. Like, you and I would never have the relationship that we have today if I wouldn't have surrendered, looked in the mirror and said, what's not working in your life, Tina? Oh, I should not be doing that. Okay, great. And like, took myself on. It never would have happened. So I think, you know, anybody listening to this, it's about taking yourself on. It's about going, okay, what's working in my life right now and what's not. And what we have learned how to do over time, Courtney, is we've learned how to be present. It's why I keep like pounding on this presence thing. Like, when you and I are completely present, when I'm completely present, like right now, I'm completely present with you guys. There is nothing getting into this space right now because I'm completely here with you. My mind's not anywhere else. My phone is put away. Like, I'm here. And when we are present and we lead from our heart and we just show up in our loving space of who we are, just trying to be in service of a better world, like, that's the healing, right? Like, that's the work, but it starts with me. I would have never been able to heal my relationship with Courtney, if I wouldn't have been open to changing and being who it is that I said I wanted to be. Of course, I always said I was a good mom. I always said my kids were the most important. Always said it. Never have said anything different. But my actions said different. My words said different. And so until I said, okay, Tina, what's working about all this? What's not working about all this? And you get to start working, you know, you get to take yourself on. I don't think that we ever would have gotten to that place because you were doing that, right? Like, so we got to grow together and create a new reality. And that's really what it takes when we think about generational healing. It's about growing together, letting go of the past and creating a new reality, because we love each other so incredibly much that we get to create our own reality instead of listening to the realities of the generations before us that said how we should or shouldn't be or do. And so that's what I would ask you, like, what reality are you creating? What generational healing are you intentionally creating and making, like, standing for in your family? And it really starts with what's working and what's not working. And so, Courtney, does it mean that our life is perfect right now just because we've done all this work and here we are today?
Not even close.
Not even close. And I think that sometimes people think that, right? I mean, even from like a social media perspective and all that, you never know what's going on in someone else's life. You never know. But when I lead with, this is what's most important to me, this is who I say that I am, when I stray from that, it always gives me a place to come back to. Courtney and I have some very strong intentions. And when we stray from that, we now have the communication tools to bring each other back in a loving way. I don't have to yell at her anymore. I don't have to control it anymore because we're aligned and we're clear. And because we've been aligned and clear, like, we're creating this massive vision for generational healing for generations to come. And so it never would have happened if I wouldn't have said, okay, Tina, it doesn't work to yell at your kids. Just doesn't work. Doesn't work to be a jerk to your husband. Just doesn't work. It's not working in your life. This itty bitty shitty committee that's running the show here does not work, Tina. You know? And so when I started taking some of that stuff on, it started to change. And Courtney, from a powerful spiritual healing perspective, and like really getting the ground game and the tools that go with that, like what we really see is being able, like, when you have both of those, that's where the balance. Who's done behavioral tests before? Like, Donise, I know you have. Megan, I know you, like, these, you know, when we know who we are inside, just naturally, it's just naturally how I was born. I was naturally born a promoter, right? You can't take it out of me. I wish you could sometimes, and you can't. It's just how it is. But I have the tools now to calm it. I have the tools now to show up grounded in that way of being. That's who I want to be. That's who I say I get to be. And when I'm not like that, we get to surround ourselves with people that will be, hey, Megan, I love you. And this is how you're showing up right now. Come back. Because I know we're aligned and we're clear. And so I think, Courtney, from that perspective, we've created the tools and the vision for what it is. What'd you say? I'm sorry, I missed it.
And the team. We have amazing people around us that support us on a daily basis. So can't get better than that.
Yeah. So what questions, are there any questions, like what's coming up for you guys as we go through this? Anything that we can clarify or talk about or anything like that?
So I'll jump in. So like, as mom, Tina, so as mom, knowing that Courtney had these beautiful gifts, like, I'd love to know more about the experience where you actually recognize these as gifts versus them being something else.
Yeah. So when Courtney great question. Thank you. So when Courtney got back from rehab, Carrie Stanley was having a retreat. We hold retreats for a specific, I'll talk for me, not for Courtney. I have a bad habit of talking for Courtney. So I hold retreats for a very specific reason, because I know that when you commit to 2 or 3 days away from the noisy and the busy, and we can really dig in, we're going to dig in and we're going to create transformation. I know that for a fact. And because I've gone to several of them over time. Carrie Stanley had one, and she asked me to come and speak at it. And it was right after Courtney had gotten back from rehab. And so Carrie, obviously being a good friend, she knew that where Courtney was at, and she knew what was happening in my life and what we were going through and stuff like that. And I said, hey, I'm going to bring Courtney. Courtney said yes to coming with. And so we both go. Courtney didn't know Carrie from anybody. Like, I had met Carrie when she didn't know anything about Carrie. And so we get to Carrie's house, and Carrie says, hey, will you do a reading for me? And first of all, I didn't even know Carrie knew that Courtney did readings, right? So I was like this, okay, I'll leave the room. And they're like, no, you can stay. And so I literally watched Courtney give Carrie a reading, knowing both of them. Like, here's a BFF and my daughter. They don't know each other. There's no way that they know each other. And I watched Courtney so powerfully create that reading with Carrie, and just the stuff that came out. And it's not like I didn't believe her before, but I didn't have the capacity to understand it, right? You know how we talk about meeting people where they're at? I didn't have the capacity to understand it. Like I was starting to kind of come into the fact that she was gifted like this and really starting to understand it. But like, I barely knew that I was Gemini, you know? And so like, it was a lot to learn and much less understand and all this kind of stuff. But the second when that was going down, I was instantly like, dang, she's powerful. Like, whoa. It was just this, like, it was like a proud mama moment times 8 million, you know? I was just like, holy shit, I birthed her. Like, wow. You know, I mean, it really was this. It was like, and from then on, it was like, we get to create together. Like, I just knew, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it would ever look like, but I knew that I was in creation mode at that point, right? Like, I was into the retreats. I was starting to speak at them. I'd maybe had a day one at that point on my own. And I was just like, oh my God, my daughter is like the most powerful being that I've ever like witnessed in my entire life. There's no way she could have, you know? And so it was just the instant trust and this instant belief that they're like, okay, Tina, here's next level. You get to take this on. Cause I didn't understand it. I didn't understand any of it. And so now that's been what, Courtney, 5 years ago or so, like 5 years later, now walking this journey with her and seeing the amazing, like spiritual transformation she creates, and understanding and being super confident in the amazing ground transformation that I can create. Like, we bring that together now into a retreat center, and we get people, you know, in this safe space for 3 days. Like, it transforms lives. It transforms lives. And that's like, literally, that's my why, because that's what creates a better world. That's what creates a transformed world, when we can really understand, like, how do I take my spiritual and my ground game and meet it in the middle? And it's magic. It's absolute magic.
Magic.
Yeah, I don't know if you'd have anything to add to that, Denise, but that was when I realized that my daughter was fucking powerful, and that we would create big stuff one day. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know what it was. And then just kind of like in the last year, I mean, I don't know what it was like for you, Courtney, but I started going, oh my God, like, we have the same vision. Like, oh my God, like, we're so incredibly aligned in what we're creating and where we're going. And then since then, it's just been this constant build. It's this, like, that's the vision. And what's the next step? And let's do that next step. Okay, great. What's the next step? Great. We got the nonprofit. Great. What's the next step? Great. We're going to clear the land. Great. What's the next step? Mini homes. Great. You know? And so we're in build mode, and it's just the most beautiful thing ever. And I think my dream is just creating generational healing. You know, they say that when you heal yourself, you healed the 7 generations before you and the 7 generations ahead of you. Like, what more important work, you guys, is there out there than that? Right?
And there is no just about it. It is magical, pure magic. And I would love also, Courtney, to hear from your perspective when you felt your mom, whether it be that same moment or not, but when you felt that your mom really believed in you, that she really knew that you had this beautiful gift, and that her being open, what did that allow for you?
Yeah, thank you, Denise, for your question. It's so beautiful. It opens up so much too, because I just want to say too that they brought me to a haunted house. That's the first thing I want to say. So to them, yeah, we're going to this Airbnb, this house, and I walk on the grounds and I'm like, oh no, looks like a beautiful house, but and then I knew I was going to be doing my work. So even in that moment, the story, we have lots of stories that we can tell. And I don't know if I've shared this publicly or even individually, but I remember when I was a kid, and when the tooth fairy, you lose your tooth, and the tooth fairy is coming. I remember even from this day, because I was seeing, you know, angels and fairies and not really sure what that was, elves and, you know, all these different kind of creatures that weren't human. And my parents would tell me that the tooth fairy was coming, and I'd stay up all night, and they'd take me into bed, and I'd keep one eye open, and they would put money under my pillow and take the tooth. And that's when I lost that trust. I said, you don't see the fairies that I do. The tooth fairy is real. You know, but she's not coming here. You know, she wasn't here. This was you. You know, I tried to kind of debunked as a kid a lot, trying to see if, you know, the humans and, you know, the people around me understood what was going on, or if I was in like my own little world. I got called imaginative a lot. And so you know, growing up as a kid, there was so many instances where I really would have these experiences, and they would be real intense for me. And I would go, you know, and explain this and be told I was, you know, imaginative or hysterical, like all kinds of crazy, all these things. So I started internalizing it a lot. And that's where my, you know, demons kind of started to pile up, that darkness, because I wasn't letting it out. I wasn't getting it out. And even, you know, in rehab, I went through my darkest dark, could still speak to angels, but they weren't very happy with me. You know, I was in kind of this rebellion stage. So it was really finding the trust between the spirit world, the spirit realm, and all dimensions. And then, you know, here in this reality that I have with the people around me, you know, my birth parents, my earth parents, and even my spirit guides would call Tina my earth mother or my birth mother, and she would get so mad. I am your mother, you know. I'm not, you know, she would get very upset at what I was receiving, and it, you know, even at the simple, it's a fact, it's not an emotional thing. So it was those times where I really got to, and even when she would have people pass away in her life, and we would both know them as they were living, and they would go on to spirit, and they'd have messages for Tina and for mom, and she didn't want those messages or didn't like what they were saying. So we had to really go through, we had to go through this boundary kind of thing. And even my grandmother, my great grandmother, is her spirit guide. So every time when I got sober and clear, I knew who I was speaking to. I knew who I was communicating and who I was channeling through. So it was grandma a lot, who was very kind and patient and graceful. Thank her for that. And she was very subtle, that I would just kind of drop these, hey, grandma's here right now and she wants us to sit and, you know, and find this, you know, something about the rings, or, you know, she would kind of give me little subtle hints and clues, and the green truck that I would have no idea what that was, but it would connect back, you know, to mom. So it's been, and even today, like, it's still like we have all this, I don't want to say metaphysical stuff happening, but, you know, paranormal, metaphysical, all kinds of stuff happening around us, especially when we're in the motherland and on the motherland, that we just look at each other now and we're like, yep. Yep. You know, before we would freak out, and now we're just like, yep, this is our life. This is it.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, you know, it's been, it's the opening up. You know, we all have our own programming, right? We all grow up thinking it's supposed to be a certain way and are being told it should, you know, do this, don't do that, and all that kind of stuff. And because I was so closed and into that mindset, it blocked me from having a relationship, right? So Donnie's relationship, like, those were the blocks that were blocking Courtney and I from really truly having the relationship that I knew we had. Like, we were like, you know, she's attached to my hip since the second she was born, and then all of a sudden she's gone, right? Like, this is my mom way of thinking of it. And there's so much that goes into the middle of that. And so, you know, if you're listening to this episode, I think what I would like to invite you to do is just really take a really hard internal look at, what am I hanging on to? What am I hanging on to and not being open about with the relationships in my life? Like, why am I not letting people just be who they are? Why am I not loving unconditionally? Like, what is stopping that relationship? And just really getting in tune with what's truly stopping you from having the relationship with somebody that you want to have. because it's wide open with presence and love. I mean, there was a lot of times when Courtney and I were super present with each other, and it was rocky, right? We were like on the edge. I mean, there's been several times when I've even left the motherland here, and I've been super emotional because we figured it out along the way, but we didn't walk away. That's what it is. We stuck because it was more important to us to build the relationship and figure that out than it was to stick in my own control. Like when I start getting upset about something, I know that I'm holding on to control, and I can coach myself now out of it. Like, what are you controlling right now? Let it go. Or I can ask Courtney, like, how are you, what's coming up for you right now? Like, what am I hanging on to? And we can help support each other to get out of it. But until we're able and willing to take a look, until I was able to like go, what the hell, Tina? Like, you're 48 years old and you've been like this with, like, this is not the way that it gets to be. And so that, I think, taking on yourself, knowing that inner work is where it gets to start, whether you're the mom or the daughter in this situation, whether you're the dad or the son in this situation, whether you're the husband or the wife in this situation, whatever relationship isn't working starts with you internally. And what do you really want out of this relationship? And when I got really, really clear that this is my daughter, like I've lived 100 lives with her, like we are stuck, we are connected. And so figure it out, Tina, right? Like, and I started to like really take myself on to like what's missing right now and going through all the work. So it starts with you. That's, I think, where it's at, right? Like it starts with you and the relationships and where you want those relationships to be. For me, it wasn't okay. Like, it's not okay for you to go to New York and not talk for 2 years. I understand now that that's a process that needed to happen, but like every day for the rest of our lives, like unless she says, Mom, I need a couple of days, which she does often. And it's amazing. Like we get to stay in connection. I get to constantly check in on that connection and make sure that we are rock solid. Because if I'm not rock solid with her, I'm not rock solid with anybody else in my life. So whatever relationships out there that you have that you're not rock solid with, know that how you do one thing is how we do everything. I had relationships all over the place that weren't rock solid, that I was pretending not to know. And so do I want this relationship? Yes or no? If it's toxic, no, goodbye. If I do, then I get to put in the work to figure out what's missing in that relationship so that I can meet that person wherever it is that I need to meet them. So, Donice, I would love for you to come off mute because your whole relationship and what you're doing with families and stuff like that, I would love to get your thoughts on this conversation and what's coming up for you as we go here, because it's all about generational healing.
Thank you. It is. And what I loved is what I really appreciated and landed for me is that you as mother and daughter sharing this space together, and how impactful it is to see what you have created together after all of what happened in the past, right? And I wrote this down, Tina, because it really landed, is, we get to learn from the past, and we get to release it and let it go and create our own new reality. That was the phrase that you said that really landed for me. Like, we all get to create that. And what I really wanted to hear was like mother perspective and daughter perspective, and how beautiful that is to see how you're still in this dance. It is a dance. And the key thing is, and I just got chills, like it's open communication. It's honest, open communication with one another that is without judgment and fear and all the things that hold us back, but really no shame. Creating a relationship with mother and child, adult child in this case, right? But in any space and time, to create a relationship that is without fear, without shame and judgment, to be free of those things so that it is unconditionally loving and accepting and creating. Like, for me, parent and child is a most beautiful space of co-creating. And what was also coming up for me is my own experiences, and many of you on this call may have had some similar experiences, where I finally chose as a parent to let go of the control. and let my child be exactly who they get to be based on their own choices, based on their own vision and their calling in this life. And as a parent, when I can let go of my expectations and my control of what I think my child should do or be, that's when my experiences, they thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when Courtney, and correct me if I'm wrong, Courtney, or if you think differently, but like, until I let go of all that, we wouldn't have been able to get where we are right now, because I was still holding on to all the past and what I thought it was supposed to be, and all the, all the stuff that comes with that. And so I'm not like, I want to make sure that we're not coming across like everything's roses. I mean, there are literally times probably in the last 4 to 6 months, right? Like I don't remember when this was, but like I literally will go to her, like, I don't know what's coming up right now, but I'm super emotional and I'm pissed off and I don't know why it is, and it might be her, it might not be her, but here's a true story of what happened. I was out here one day and my best friend's mom had passed away before I came out here. And it was about 3 weeks in between when that happened and when the funeral was happening. And I was bummed because I wasn't going to be there for her when her mom's funeral happened. Right. And so I get here, and I'm telling you, you get here to the motherland, you forget that any other reality exists because it's just so magical here, right? So some of you that I have calls with know that Tina's there. She's not going to be around. But like, so what happens is, like, I'm here, I wake up in the morning and I'm feeling it. Like I'm just in a funk. I'm mad. I don't know why I'm mad. I'm a reflector. So I take on energy, right? Like I'm mad and I don't understand why I'm mad. In the past, I would have probably worked myself into somehow I was mad at Courtney or something was going on or something like that, right? I literally just walked out. I went and sat out in the Florida room. And about 5 minutes later, Courtney literally opens up the door and she's like, is something going on with Dawn? And I'm like, why? And she's like, because her mom is coming to me. And I'm like, I forgot the funeral was today. I literally had forgotten that her mom's funeral was that day. And Courtney was able to like remind me of that, So I don't remember even why I was going there. Yeah, I don't remember why I was going there, but yeah. And, just being totally open to it. So I didn't have to take out what was happening inside my body on her, which is, she's been who it's either her or Al, right? Like when I'm feeling it inside and I'm feeling it because I'm a very highly reactive and emotional person, I'm feeling it. And then, somebody gets it and it's strong and it's powerful. And I don't ever want to do that to anybody that I love again. I don't. I'm committed to not doing that to anybody that I ever love again. So I go and I work through it, and she's powerful enough that she knew something was going on in spirit and we were able to work through it. But like,
and it used to go on for days. I just want to add that too, this could go on for days, weeks, months, maybe years in the past. This was, it happens quicker because it's like a response, thing. It's more automatic.
Yeah, it's where what prompted me for it, Courtney, was Donnie's and the open communication. It's about communication. Hey, moment. This is what's coming up inside me. I don't know what it means. I don't know what it is, but I need you to be aware that it's coming up, because now everybody around me knows what's coming up inside of me and can support me through it. But what do we normally do? We go in this blame and shame, or we start telling ourselves a story, or we get ourselves worked up. And, and then for me, like Courtney said, days, weeks, months later, I'm finally like, okay, I'm through this now. And I've wasted all this time in my life when if I just would have been like honest with what was coming up for me, we could have worked through it together. So again, those tools have really supported us over time to create that open communication. The tools have supported us to really make sure that we have good intention going into anything. So all about learning the right tools for that communication. Great question, Denise. Anything come up for you around that, Courtney?
Loyalty. It's like words today. Loyalty. Just that I know that the love, because when you work on love and you nurture that, I know and I know you as a person are more loyal than I understand in this world. But the loyalty in that I think is huge, because again, even when we're going further, we're going to have more life stuff come up. Even the people around us are going to have life stuff come up. And so now you and I stand and we link arms, we stand together. and we don't care. It's not, we don't care. We don't allow what other people think and feel to stop us anymore. You know, we're not too much, or, you know, we bring in the light and we bring in the love, and I'm not going to apologize for that anymore. And I know what we're bringing to the table. And I know that there's lots of people that will stand right next to us because they feel it too, and they know it to be true. So that kind of love and that kind of loyalty is unstoppable.
And we created it. It's not like it just
You got
happened,
it.
right? Like we get to create it. So here's what I would invite you to do, because this is like, we create these so that they're workshoppy and that you can come and, yes, get the information, but also have the tools to go back out and really figure it out. And so today's theme was really around presence, right? Like, how present are you in your relationships? When we're present in our relationships, we understand what's working. We understand what's not working. We may not have the fix for what's not working, but we understand that it's not working. Like, I'm no longer pretending to know that I'm yelling at people that I love in my life, you know? Not okay. I'm aware of it. Now I can figure out what to practice and figure out what tool to pull out to actually not do that anymore. So if you're kind of just starting down this journey, like, I would really go internal and really go, what's working right now with my relationships and what's not working with my relationships. When I did this with Courtney, it was like, you know, we're inconsistent in our connection. I mean, when we're connected, we're unstoppable. Like, I feel it, you know. When we're not connected, it stops me. Like, I'm literally stopped if I'm not connected to her, because that relationship is so important to me. Same with my husband, right? Like, when I'm not connected to him, it stops me. And so where are you getting stopped in your relationships? When we understand that, we can start to go, okay, so I'm aware now. Now, what is the next right thing that I want to do? Do I get to go have a conversation with that person? Sometimes it's just there's conversations. I'm sure Courtney, at some point I said to Courtney, look, I get that I've messed up a million times in the past. I get it. My intention is not to anymore. My intention is to be here. My intention is to build relationship with you. My intention is to love you. Like, and when we just communicate that to people, sometimes that's all they need to hear in order to turn the relationship around, right? In order to clear and let go of the stuff that we've been hanging on to. So what's the stop right now in those relationships that you say are important? I said my kids were number one. I've said it my whole life. And for the first 48 years of my life, I did everything other than show up as them being a priority. So are you creating what it is that you say? I said I wanted that to be the case, but I wasn't doing the stuff that I got to do in order to actually create it. I wasn't looking at what's stopping me. Well, yelling is stopping you. If I want Courtney to run the other direction, all I got to do is raise my voice. She's gone. Right? Am I right?
Or
and
we
so
sit.
like, what's that?
I said, or we sit. In that moment, it's no, let's ground.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah. So I want to just take in addition to like inviting you to, like, that's some of the work that gets to come from today. Really take a good hard look at who are my important relationships? Is it my kids? Is it my spouse? Is it my family? Is it my brother, my sister, whatever it is? And what's working and what's not working? What's the stop in that relationship? And if you've had a toxic relationship with somebody, open communication. Hey, Donise, I get that we have not talked in a year and a half. My heart hurts because of it. Can we just let it all go and start new? Here's the line. Let's draw it. Let's go. I love you. You're important in my life. Like, right? What holds you back from telling people that stuff? No more blame, no more shame, no more any of that. You just get to build the relationship that you say you want. And sometimes we get to start it all the time. Actually, it starts with us. So any questions, any comments, any thoughts, anybody want to share anything as we kind of start to wrap up? I want to thank you, Courtney.
Yeah, this right here is how I see you all. Here, there we go. Light and love right there.
Beautiful.
Yes. Well, and it's so important to us that, like, you know, we're on a mission. We're on a mission to bring these tools and this information and all of this to light, because we know that it supports people for sure. So I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank Courtney. This was the first time, like, you know, she was a turtle in her shell, you know, and it's been a process and an evolution as she's come out of that. So to hear her talk from her heart today and tell her story and really start to stand in her truth and in her voice, it warms my heart. Carol Sue, did you have a question?
Thank you.
You know, this is really hitting home to me very closely because my daughter's 40 and our relationship just isn't as close as I would like it to be. And last night we had a family dinner together because she has just gone down to California from Oregon. My husband is in California from Washington, working on our house in California. And they all met at my sister's to have dinner. And then they called me and we had a family thing with video so that we could see each other. And I've been upset that she was willing to go to California, but she has yet to come see me here in Belize, in paradise. And yet she's taken trips all over the world and close. She's been to Cancun twice since I've been here. She's been to Hawaii. She's been to France. Why hasn't she come to see me? And it's hurt a lot. You know, what's wrong with us and our relationship that she's not willing to come see me? And my husband, even though we're kind of splitting up because we haven't seen each other in almost 6 years, but we aren't. We're seeing each other every day. We sleep together on a Zoom-like product. We can't really give each other up as far as that relationship goes, but it all needs improvement, all our relationships. And is it because they feel I'm controlling? And yet I don't see it. I don't understand it. I don't see it, but that's kind of what they say.
Yeah. So Carol Sue, what's it going to take for you to let go of the control? And
right.
just
what is it? I need to first ask them, give me an example of what they feel, how they feel controlled. I don't even see it.
So the first thing is the judgment around not coming to see you, right? Like you get to let that judgment go. There's a reason. And like how I would do this. And again, this is just me, but I'd be like, Courtney, I love you so much. And like, my heart hurts. You've been around here twice and I would dream of you coming to see me. And if she chooses to, great. And if she chooses not to, she's in her own healing, Carol Sue. Like understand that she's in her own process, in her own journey. And all you can do is be 100% lovingly honest with her. Like, I would love to see you. Like my heart will be happiest when I see you, you know? But that control and that judgment of she's been here, she's not come to see me, she's going to see everyone else, right? Do you feel like, can you see that judgment that's in there a little bit? So you just get to let go. Courtney went to New York for 2 years and I had to be like, okay, she's in New York. I get to trust that this is exactly what it's supposed to be. And literally the phone would ring and I would run across the house to grab it when she would call, right? I just got to sit and let her go through her process and trust her and let her know that I'm here, honey. When you're ready, I'm here. Like I'm here. And I got to just meet her where she's at. But the whole way through, instead of making her feel guilty for not coming to see you, you just get to love her and tell her that you just love her and you trust her process and that you're there for her when she's ready to come and see you. And Courtney, I would, if you have any, that you're probably the better one to give advice on that one.
The survival mode too, Carol Sue, you know, we've all been in kind of a survival mode, especially the last few years. So instead of kind of, when you say control, you know, that's your love. But sometimes energetically, that's not how it's received. So the fight or flight response, I used to just freeze, you know, or kind of go in my turtle shell where it sounds like she's, you know, traveling all over the place, you know, but maybe later on she'll understand that she lost some time with you, you know, and that'll be her journey to kind of understand that though that good time, you know, with you wasn't there. So energetically kind of letting go of that control and then using kind of the wordage that Tina was saying, that Mom was saying of, you know, hey, you don't have to come here. You know, you can, it's welcome for you whenever you want to. That in itself will, it'll open it up and clear, and it has nothing to do with you. I wouldn't take it on personally because you're wonderful. So
thank you. And you're right. I am.
I know
you are. It's holding space, Carol Sue. You get to hold space for her journey. Because I'm sure that there have been things in the past that you've ticked her off with, right? Like Courtney has a whole scroll. Like, here's the list for mom.
She's holding on to a bunch of shit.
And it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
It's
I'm
all good.
holding on. I gotta say, and I'm holding on to a little bit of shit myself.
Yeah.
Well, that's where it is. You get to let that go. And as you let that go, I promise she'll start coming to you. Energetically, it'll happen. You just get to let it go first. Easier said than done. I get it. But yeah.
And that might be the
Got it.
first time that I've admitted that I'm holding on to shit.
Yeah.
First step,
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Snaps.
Yeah. Let that shit go. And
And on that note,
Wish we could just take a laxative for that one, right?
yeah, there you go. All right, you guys, we are
Thank
coming up
you.
on our time. Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
all for
We'll see you
being
next
here.
time. Thank you for being here. Love everyone. Bye.
I love you.
My name is Tina Paulus-Krause, and I thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. Check out our programs and events at trueyouteams.com. And until next time, make it an amazing day.